This is my attempt at number 2 of recording this shit. My God, I can't believe I did that. I accidentally did the thing where I accidentally canceled my recording, and it didn't even save, so I can't even do a 2-parter. Well, I'm gonna get through this a little bit faster than my previous recording because I actually went 23 minutes, so I'm gonna get through this a little faster because it's going forever. Back a few months, I made a bet with Lundrick about Roman Reigns turning heel, and the bet was if Reigns turned heel in 2016, he would have to review Heroes of Wrestling, the one show that he said he will never review. If he did not turn heel, if Reigns did not turn heel, then I would have to review it. Well, 2017 is here. I have to review this shit, and let me tell you, this show was fucking horrible. This show is everything that you said it was, that people said that it was. I could not believe how horrible this show was. I could not believe how little effort there was to this show. Let's not put it off any further. This show, first of all, the show's quality looked like it was a 1980s pay-per-view, not a 1990s pay-per-view. But considering the fact that this was not WWE or F at the time, this was not WCW, this was not even ECW. Although they purposely decided to be grungy and grimy and all that because it made them different. This show was the quality was not good, but you could forgive it because of the fact that indie shows did not have a lot of budget with pay-per-views, and that fact that HD did not exist and all that. And there's another thing I actually forgot to talk about this at the beginning of the previous recording, which is probably a good thing. Now that I'm saying this now. The original commentators, it was gonna be, yes, we had commentary on this team, on this show. We had Dutch Mantel, who for recent fans is Zeb Coulter from WWE. We had Dutch Mantel, and we had a guy by the name of Randy Rosenblum. I believe that's his name. He's a guy who mainly works in football and other sort of sports. The problem is Randy Rosenblum sucked. He was a horrible commentator, a horrible announcer. He would constantly say that that a drop kick, he called it a flying kick or a leg drop. How does one confuse a leg drop with a drop kick? Now, Randy Rosenblum was actually brought in at the last minute, which really shows because he had little to no desire for wrestling at all. He was there mainly to collect a paycheck. Where Dutch Mantel actually tried, and there was one match here where Captain Lou Albano was on commentary, and he infinitely made the commentary better. But believe it or not, Randy Rosenblum wasn't supposed to announce the show. It was actually supposed to be legendary announcer Gordon Solie, who was about 70 years old at this time. The problem is, about a few months before, I think it was like a few months before Heroes of Wrestling was going to take place, Gordon Solie sadly got throat cancer and would die in the middle of July in 2000. And from what I heard, when he got throat cancer, he had his almost like a voice box. He had it removed, so Gordon Solie could not talk by this point, or if he did, it wasn't too long after that he lost his voice permanently. Which is sad because a lot of people say Gordon Solie is one of the greatest announcers in the history of sport. Wrestling fans, you could say JR, Jim Ross. He's my personal favorite, but Gordon Solie was a great one. The fact that we never got to hear Gordon Solie's voice one last time, like in a pay-per-view setting like this, even for a shit show, I think it would have made the show just a little bit better had we got Gordon Solie. So it sucks that he had to die. Hold on a second. Sure thing. Got it. I'm actually recording right now, Mom. Oh, sorry. It's alright. I just gotta.
It's just Jake.
No. Sorry about the intrusion, guys. So anyways, back to the show. The show was horrible. The show was absolutely atrocious. And let's get to the matches now. The first match was the match of Marty Jannetty and Tommy Rogers versus the Samoan Swat team. There's been 4 different versions. This version consisted of the Samoan Savage, which, yes, that is his real in-ring name, and Samu. Now, and this match was completely fucking horse shit. No, not horse shit. I mean, as in a whore and her shit. That's how horrible the show was. This match, this everything. Now, here's the problem. My God, here's the problem. For some, I don't know whether or not this was booking or the fact that they didn't care, but the Samoan Savage and Samu, they kept on dicking around. Like half the time they would just be doing goofy shit in the first half of the match. In the second half, they would every once in a while do something goofy and then actually wrestle. By that time, I didn't care. I didn't care about the show at all. Period. That's the moment I started watching. But I tried going in the lighthearted, like, okay, I'll try to find something I enjoy about this show. There was nothing here except for Marty Jannetty. Marty Jannetty was one of the very few wrestlers who I actually gave a damn in this show. And it's really sad because Marty Jannetty was already past his prime. He was 39 years old. He was going to be 40 next year, 2000. Tommy Rogers looked pathetic. He looked like a newbie half the time, which was bad. And the Samoan SWAT team was just digging around, not really caring about anything, which is sad because they're the ones that actually won the match. Whenever Marty Jannetty was actually doing something, I liked it. I kind of liked it. Everything else about this match was horrible, horrible, utter garbage. Samoan SWAT team won the match. I don't fucking care. I don't even remember most of the finishes. I don't even remember. And I just watched the show earlier today. That's how bad it was. Next we had Greg the Hammer Valentine versus George the Animal Steele. Yes. You'd think this was the early 1980s WWF all over again. Back when Greg the Hammer Valentine was actually meant something, and when George the Animal Steele was still liked by the crowds. George Steele was accompanied to the ring by Sherry Martel. Queen Sherry. The whole thing with Randy Savage. Yeah. Sherry Martel was in this match as a valet. And she kept on going back and forth helping out each guy. And this match was fucking horrible. This match was fucking horrible, horrendous. And there was this theme throughout the show. A foreign object would be introduced to the match, but it wasn't like a steel chair or a kendo stick or something like that. It was, I don't know what it was. And maybe somebody can tell me because I honestly have no idea what it is. It was like this little white thing that people would use, that you would use to hit somebody with. It wasn't like a foreign object. Like, it was a foreign object, but it wasn't like something that would like really hurt your opponent, like a sledgehammer or pretty much anything else. But I don't know what it was, but it kept on being introduced throughout the show and several matches. Now, in this match, it was given to Greg Valentine by Sherry Martel. Because at one point, George the Animal Steele tried to take off his shirt during the match. When the shirt was over his head, Greg Valentine beat on him in the corner for what felt like an eternity. Because apparently George Steele did not take his shirt off before the match. Dumbass. Sherry Martel kept on clawing at his head, but he didn't know who it was because he couldn't see. So at the end of the match came, Steele was on the bottom rope, on the floor on the bottom rope in the ring. Greg the Valentine was doing something stupid, or just being a heel. Referee went to check on him, and then Sherry Martel walloped this guy in the back of the head with a steel chair. Valentine pinned him 1, 2, 3. Greg the Hammer Valentine won this match after 6.5 minutes of total fucking garbage. This match sucked so horribly. This match was horrible, utter shit. It wasn't the worst match on the show. Hell, this is the first of 4 matches that I'm giving duds, and this was the least bad. Anyways, and I hated the finish for 2 reasons. Not because for 2 reasons. One, the age. Greg the Hammer Valentine was 48 years old. Now, admittedly, Greg Valentine still looks like Greg Valentine. He aged well, somewhat. At least up until this point. George Steele, though, he aged badly, which shouldn't be a surprise considering the fact that when I started watching him in WWF in the 1980s, he was already old by that point. He was almost 50 by that point. He was 60 years old during his pay-per-view. Apparently, I'm the workhorse of the house. Anyways, George Steele is a 60-year-old guy. And he gets, admittedly, it was a soft chair shot, but he got walloped by Sherry Martel in the back of the head with a chair. At your age, at 60 years old, why would he do that? Why would anybody do that at 60 years old? Who knows what your freaking condition is as an older guy? That could really hurt somebody. That could give you a concussion at your age. And what was even worse is the fact that after the match, George Steele chased Valentine and Sherry Martel to the back, and by chase I mean that quotes, literally quotes, because Sherry Martel and Greg Valentine jogged to the back. Steele ended up walking up the ramp, then walked down back the ramp, and then did his normal thing where he bit onto one of the turnbuckle pads and then ripped it to shreds, which apparently was his thing for a long time. It still is probably his thing. And oh boy, this is the second reason why I hated that finish, because Greg Valentine came back in with probably, I think it was actually the same steel chair, and he hit George Steele in the back. What looked like it was a harder hit. Yet George Steele no-sold it. Just a minute or so after getting hit in the back of the head. Now, granted, he was hit in the head, but it was a soft shot by a skinny old woman by all things. She was actually 40 years old, not that old, but by a skinny lady. So yeah, that it was just fucking horrible shit. It was inconsistent booking, which was another reason to hate this match. This match had inconsistent booking surrounding it. This match was horrible. This show is horrible. Have you heard him say horrible yet? I bet you have. Now after this, we had, in my opinion, the best match in the show. That's not saying much, but it was a match between Two Cold Scorpio and a guy with the name of Julio Fantastico, who in other places wrestled under the name Julio Dinero. Both wrestled in ECW. At one point, both wrestled in TNA. And of course, Two Cold Scorpio. He was Flash Funk in WWE. He was in WCW. He was in the Ring of Honor at one point. So this guy really gets around. But Two Cold Scorpio was still a young guy at this time. He was still athletic. And so was Julio Fantastico. These guys went out there for about 9.5 minutes. I will admit, don't get me wrong, this match was mediocre objectively. But compared to the rest of the show, this match was fucking British Bulldog and Bret Hart at Wembley Stadium in 1992, SummerSlam. Compared to all the rest of the show, which is saying a lot, by the way. It was a mediocre match, but it was in some ways enjoyable. There's only 2 things I enjoyed about this show. One of them was this match. I enjoyed watching Two Cold Scorpio in there. Julio Fantastico did basic stuff, but he was good at what he did. He even took a sick backdrop into the crowd onto what looked like concrete floor. Or maybe it was gym floor. Either way, that probably hurt a lot. Like, a lot. So, to think that he did so, and well, they brought him to the crowd, and another thing with the show is that, because of how cheap it was, couldn't exactly walk into the crowd with a camera like could WWE. So, we didn't see their action there. But it was actually a somewhat enjoyable match. It wasn't bad. Some people would say it's bad. In my opinion, it wasn't that bad. It was mediocre, yeah, but it was not bad. Compared to the rest of the show, it was a good match. But it was a mediocre match on a horrible show, which doesn't help the show that much at all. Too Cold Scorpio hit. He hit Fantastico with. First, it was the Harlem Heat finish, which was the 450 into a leg drop. And then he hit him with a Phoenix Splash into a leg drop, which he hit both of them pretty much on point. So, impressive moves from Too Cold Scorpio. 1, 2, 3, Scorpio won the match. Thus ending one of the only two things I actually enjoyed about this show. Next, we had, let's see here. We had, in my opinion, and Lundrick, you told me this, man. You told me this, and I agree with you. In my opinion, the worst wrestling match in the history of pro wrestling ever. I mean, my God, was this show horrible. So let me give you the rundown. The wrestlers in this match were Nikolai, Volkoff, and the Iron Sheik, both way decades past their prime at this point. And then you had the guys that call themselves the Men from Down Under, or as I'd like to say, the Bushwackers. Yes, it was just the Bushwackers going by a different name, a different tag team name, not even different singles names. They were still called Butch and Luke. So yeah, it was. So this was like the early 1980s WWF all over again, except this was 1999, October of '99, so almost 2000. Not good at all. This match really is the worst wrestling match in the history of wrestling. I mean, for so many reasons. Butch sucked, Luke sucked, Iron Sheik was bad and way past his prime. The manager they had, which was Nikita Khrushchev or something like that, they sucked. He was not that good of a manager there. He did nothing for me. But the worst of all was Nikolai Volkoff. His offense was so horrible that little girls could probably beat his ass. That's how bad it was. Backbreakers looked so Eva Marie-ish. And Eva Marie does moves better than Nikolai Volkoff did here. And that's saying a lot, considering how bad Eva Marie actually is as an in-ring performer. Hang on a second. Probably my niece. Yeah, what's up?
There's someone that wants to see you.
Ooh. Can it wait a little bit? I'm recording right now. Sorry, my uncle and aunt are visiting, but I gotta finish this up. This was a horrible, horrible match. The Bushwackers won. I honestly forget how, because that's how bad it was. But this match was fucking horrible. Worst match ever in the history of wrestling ever. Fuck! I am this close to cracking. This match, so fucking horrible. I hated this match. It made me want to kill myself. It made me want to kill myself. Now, thankfully, I started watching Wrestle Kingdom after I watched this pay-per-view, so I was able to keep my sanity, because Wrestle Kingdom is a far superior show, and I will review Wrestle Kingdom, by the way. But this show was horrible. I'll say it again, the show was horrible. Next, we had the only other thing I actually enjoyed on this show, which was a Tully Blanchard promo. Tully Blanchard earlier in the day was interviewed. He was attacked by Stan Lane, who was his opponent on that night. And Tully Blanchard cut a very passionate promo about how he may be older, but the fire that makes him a pro wrestler is still there. How he wrestled guys like Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, Ric Flair, and all the guys back in the day. How he made them better, which is true because he was part of the Brainbusters and he wrestled the Rockers. And of course, he was part of the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and I honestly forget the other member. There's always that fourth guy you always forget, kind of like how in Kiss you always forget that fourth guy, or maybe even the Beatles. Well, actually, no, you should never forget the Beatles, because if you do, I will hurt you badly. But anyways, it was a very fiery passion promo, and he also said that, you know, all the shit that he's taken over the years from the companies he's been in is finally boiling over, is coming up now. He showed a hell of a lot of fire, which makes me think that Tully Blanchard would have been a hell of a manager for WWE or WCW at this time. He would have been a hell of a manager. An up-and-comer guy using Tully Blanchard as a springboard to future stardom, I could totally buy that. Because Tully Blanchard he's got the name, he's got the history, and he's got the connections, hopefully, you know, with Ric Flair and everything. Now after that, we proceeded to have another horrible match. What are the odds? Stan Lane and Tully Blanchard. Now I'll admit, Tully Blanchard tried. He actually tried, but there was no saving this match. Stan Lane was fucking around half the time. The other time, he was not that good at all. The finish was basically a back suplex, like how Cena does the back suplex into the 5-knuckle shuffle. But it was just a normal back suplex. Now, admittedly, the finish was bad to finish, but I saw worse. It was so basically both their shoulders are down on the mat. The referee was counting. Just when he was about to put down the hand for the 3, Blanchard rolled his shoulder over. But if we looked at a different camera angle, which we did, you could see that Stan Lane did not put his shoulders up, or at least not up fully for the pin. So he lost the match. Blanchard won. This was still a horrible finish. So we had 3 decent wrestlers on this show. We had Tully Blanchard, Too Cold Scorpio, and Marty Jannetty. The good thing is that with Too Cold Scorpio, it's that he actually wrestled someone who was not horrible. I don't know if he was good or bad, because I'd never seen that Julio Fantastico before this. But he actually got a good match out of him. A mediocre match, I should say. The other 2 guys, they were hopeless, because they were working with guys who either didn't fucking care or were really horrible. Now, next match, please. We got Abdullah the Butcher with Honest John versus One Man Gang. Now, this is one of the worst matches in the history of wrestling. Not as bad as the tag team match, but this was really, really horrible. Horrible. Abdullah the Butcher versus One Man Gang. Now, One Man Gang cut a pretty nutty promo. It was only like a few seconds, but he cut a pretty nutty promo, which begs the question, was he always this nutty? One Man Gang was? No, before he became a Team the African Dream, which was actually pretty funny, I have to admit. Let's see here. This match was really, really horrible. Abdullah the Butcher was never a good wrestler. I've yet to see one good Abdullah the Butcher match, or Abdullah the Butcher, whatever you want to call him. I call him Abdullah. I've yet to see one good match from that guy. And One Man Gang, he didn't try per se, but he at least looked like he could kick a fair amount of ass, which I think is the only thing that kept this from being the worst match. It was really going hand in hand, like which match was worse, tag match or the Abdullah match. I'll go with the tag match, because at least One Man Gang looked like he actually wanted to beat up Abdullah the Butcher. But then the match broke down into what I would call a New Jack match. Remember New Jack? The guy who would constantly have violence happen in every match he was in. He would constantly be bloodied up and all that shit. Yeah, this was a New Jack match, except without New Jack. One-man gang ended up bloodied. Abdullah the Butcher ended up bloodied. Abdullah the Butcher ended up winning the match. This match was fucking horrible. So I can tell you, blood and the fact that one-man gang had a little bit more motivation was what made this match a little bit better than the other one. That's not saying much. This is the third dud of the night. The second was the tag match with Nikolai Volkoff, Iron Sheik, and the Bushwackers, and the first was Greg the Hammer Valentine and George the Animal Steele. We have yet to get to that fourth one. Next we had Jimmy Snuka with Captain Lou Albano, who this is the second time Lou Albano came up for commentary, I believe. No, he only came up for commentary once. But he was the manager for Jimmy Snuka, and he faced off against Cowboy Bob Orton, both of whom were past their prime. Hell, when Snuka faced Undertaker 9 years earlier at WrestleMania 7, he was past his prime even then. So yeah, Snuka was not. He had little to no motivation this entire match. We didn't even see a Superfly splash. I already forgot who his opponent was. Hang on. And Bob Orton, he did nothing for me. This match was horrible. It was this close to being yet another dud if it wasn't for a tad. If it wasn't for, I will admittedly, the last minute or so did get just a little bit fast paced, a little bit more, which was slightly enjoyable, but not enough to save this match. Superfly didn't even hit a Superfly smash. He had a cross body on Bob Orton when Orton got distracted, and then rolled up Bob Orton for the pin. So, horrible showing from both Orton and Snuka, who were stars back in the 70s and 80s. It was so close to being a dud, but it was not dud level. The next match was dud level. Now, here's the story. It was supposed to be a double main event, which, by the way, double main event, triple main event, those do not exist. The main event is whatever goes on last. You could say main event level match, but not main event. It was supposed to be a double main event between Jim Neidhart and Jake Roberts, and the final match would have been Yokozuna against King Kong Bundy. Yes, Yokozuna, who by this time was about 650 to 700 pounds. Not kidding. His ass was huge. Anyways. Anyways. So, then we had the backstage promo. And WAPW, We Are Pro Wrestling, already talked about this, but that backstage promo with Jake Roberts was so out of this world. Jake Roberts was off his rocker. He was a drunken man. He was in a bad place back in 1999. It wasn't until recently when he lived with DDP that he got off the chain. And he got, put his foot back on track. But that promo was horrible. And it started off as a singles match. This started off as a singles match with Jim Neidhart and Jake Roberts, but Roberts was so out of it that they just sent King Kong Bundy and Yokozuna out there, a couple minutes from each other, I might add, to make it a tag team match. And most of the work was basically still on Jake Roberts, because Jake Roberts was drunk. King Kong Bundy was completely way past his prime. He was never that good of a wrestler to begin with, but he was way past his prime. Yokozuna was hugely obese at this time. Jim Neidhart was the only one there who actually looked like he could wrestle. But that's not saying much because Jim Neidhart didn't even wrestle that much. He couldn't. Not against Jake Roberts. So Jim Neidhart was at a handicap that he could not escape from. And you could tell he was pissed about how out of it Jake Roberts was. He was pissed off. You could tell just by his face. Jake Roberts came out. He played with Damien. put it under his legs. He had a woman rub his chest for a quick second. He pretended to masturbate with a snake, which was fucking horrendous. It's so horrible to see how Jake Roberts was back then compared to how he is now. Yokozuna finally got the tag for the last 30 seconds of this match. Yet they pinned Jake Roberts for the win. How does that make any sense? That's even worse. The fact that they didn't even pin the legal man. Yokozuna was the legal man. I guess they did it because Yokozuna couldn't really wrestle at all unless it was another big guy. That's why you think he wrestled Vader throughout much of 1996 in WWE. Because he was hugely overweight. This was a fucking horrible match. So Jim Neidhart, King Kong Bundy won. This really was, and they just kind of went off the air. No celebration. Yokozuna did hit a Samoan drop on what looked like a King Kong Bundy Jr., like a miniature skinny version of him. And then the show was over. And then, for some reason, at the very end, they cut back to the ring where Yokozuna was trying to help Jake Roberts off. Jake Roberts, throughout this entire match, was wobbling all over the place. There was at one point where he completely fell on the mat because he was so drunk. I'm not kidding. That actually did happen. This show was fucking horrible. Nobody should ever see this match. Ever, 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 ever. Watch the Tully Blanchard promo. If you want to, depending on your opinion, you can watch the Too Cold Scorpio and Julio Fantastico match. Other than that, stay away from the show as long as you live, unless you're a YouTube reviewer like me. I'm Samoan Fan 101. This is the worst pay-per-view ever, with the worst matches in the history of ever. The shittiest of the shit. Goodbye. I'll see you next time with another video that I will not be nearly pissed off with. Goodbye.